Welcome back. And from the challenge of insecurity, we move to human rights. And they're related, if you ask me. They say gender rights are human rights. And the inability to tackle one, also risks lack of development on many fronts. And so let's, review our progress in the fight against sexual and gender-based violence. And joining us on the program this morning is Ololade Ajayi. She's a founder, Doors Cares Foundation, and she's right here in our Lagos studio. Good morning, Lolade. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm so great. I'm grateful to be here.
Yes, indeed, and we're glad to have you. Thank you. Just a few days ago, Nigeria joined the rest of the world to celebrate the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence, and the minister has been speaking. But broadly speaking now, what are your observations both at the state level and at the national level about the efforts deployed to tackling sexual and gender-based violence?
I would say that the Nigerian government fares averagely in tackling that because we have laws that addresses this, especially the VAP Act that's been adopted in at least 35 states and the FCT. But then the implementation of these laws, sometimes there are challenges with implementation of these laws, and also challenges with prosecution that eventually leads to sentencing. I think the challenges mostly comes from the police stations, because these are the ones that will determine if this case, gets prosecuted, gets into a court of law eventually. And the other challenge that we'll have is data tracking. We do not have a GBV board, an SGBV dashboard that tracks the prevalence of this crime in Nigeria. So we just see cases, but like you said, they marked the International Day of women who were killed in sexual violence during conflicts. Many of the cases that we've been discussing, in kidnapping, in insecurity and all that, many of these cases, when it happens to women, happens because sometimes these women refuse to be raped, and so they get killed. And so in most of these cases, they're just tagged insecurity. But, there are also some gender dynamics, even in insecurity. So I think we need to look holistically into that as well.
So let's talk about what I feel will move the needle. Okay. And that has to do with legislation. I saw it as part of the highlights of what you're doing, besides dedicated response and the action that is required.
Yeah.
Where is the legislation at the moment that in your view, from your work, that is not satisfactory? And where should it be that will give us a kind of result that we need to deter people from hurting our girls and our women?
Okay, thank you very much. So, first of all, my viewpoint is that we need, I would say we need new laws, especially laws on femicide. Now, femicide is the gender-related killing of a woman or girl, mostly because of her gender, usually by an intimate partner, by a relative or close acquaintance. There is no mention of femicide in any Nigerian law, in the criminal code, in the VAP laws. So we need specific mention. I remember that we drafted a bill and submitted it. We drafted a bill on femicide and submitted even before the Lagos State House of Assembly and also before the National Assembly. And the Lagos State House of Assembly wrote back to us to say, oh, there are laws, on domestic violence in Lagos State and also in the criminal code, there's laws on murder. But we said that was not enough because if you classify, the laws on murder, if you look at it, if you say, for instance, 5,000 people are killed in Nigeria in a year, and that's homicide, in general. But then from our data, we have discovered that a woman or girl is killed every 49 hours in an act of femicide in Nigeria. This data on homicide does not specifically let us know about this gender
one in
dynamic.
Every 2 days.
Yes.
And that's scary.
And that's scary because they are killed in places whereby these women are supposed to be protected, whereby these women should feel safe at home. Home is one of the most dangerous places for a Nigerian woman, and this should not be so. We want, the conversations reviewed.
Can you say that again?
home is one of the most dangerous places for Nigerian women and girls.
Oh.
Yes. From our data board, we see that for the highest number of femicide are committed by husbands, intimate partner, ex-husbands, boyfriends, intimate partners, basically. And the prevalence of this crime is quite alarming because, and it keeps occurring because prevention measures are not enough. And there's also no specific legislation on this. So we want there to be specific legislation on femicide. For instance, we've tracked hotspot zones. Hotspot zones are states where these crises keep occurring and with repeated patterns. For instance, we can see in the last 1 month, we've tracked 3 nurses who were killed in their homes.
To which part of the country?
One was in Imo State, Wendy Achumba, the nurse who was raped at home and killed. Also, another one is that 2 were in Anambra State. But we've also seen the patterns here in Lagos State as well. In fact, Lagos State is one of the highest states. It's the highest right now from our dashboard, from our data. It has the highest occurrence of femicide in Nigeria. We've tracked about 350 cases.
Why do you think that is? Lagos, I think Lagos had some good laws when it comes to, because I follow up a couple of things when it comes to issue of children and women. I was rating Lagos pretty high in terms of management of this, so it's surprising to see this number from Lagos.
Yes, so that might either be due to the fact that there's more reporting of this crime in Lagos State. So in many cases where this crime occurs, they do not report it. And there's no, and that's one of the things that we're advocating for in the femicide.
So it could be more in those other states that are not reflecting on your dashboard, but because Lagos has a robust intervention and legislation and mechanism.
Not reporting.
Reporting.
Yes. Because these cases get flagged on social media, get flagged, and people are more aware that they should report this case, they should speak up, and they might, receive help.
But you disagree with that of mechanism for intervention?
Yes, I do disagree with it.
I was going to quote, the Domestic Violence and Sexual Response Unit, DSVRT, which provides intervention. But since you disagree, I'm more interested in your advocacy for a femicide law. There is a culpable homicide law. And you talked earlier on that, the challenges are with the institution that should respond, which is the police stations. If we looked at the gender units in these stations and how trained and active they are in responding, maybe that's where the problem is. Shouldn't that be where your advocacy should lie, instead of in the area of advocating for a legislation on femicide?
Okay, so it doesn't stop at just legislation, but legislation helps to, when this law is codified. For instance, a woman who is going through domestic violence, I still had the case yesterday, and the police returned her home. They had some form of mediation, and she vehemently refused to go, but they tried to mediate and asked her to go back home. And I said, what's going to happen? You just made the man sign an undertaking, and because the police was not, I don't know, maybe not, I didn't want to say not trained, maybe not sensitive enough, or for some reason decided to take that action. If it was codified in the law that when this happens, this is going to happen, this is a red flag of femicide. When this occurs, for instance, when we go to communities to talk about the red flags of femicide, for instance, if domestic violence happens and there's strangulation, it's likely to kill you, or there's burning of things, it's likely to burn you up. And this is a pattern that we have studied that eventually resulted in this. And so we say these officers should have been, trained to say, when this occurs, this is not what you should, this is what you should do. And that eventually it results in, it's a case of state failure in protecting these women and girls. We have seen people who have been returned into the environment after, arrest and mediation, because they don't strengthen that further by going to prosecute those cases. Yes, I mean, the DSVA very wonderfully, they try with supporting survivors of abuse, but oftentimes and most, because these red flags are not recognized by these officers, if their femicide is actually classified, it defines what the red flags are, it defines what constitutes attempted femicide, not just domestic violence. And we don't see it as a private case, we see it as a public issue, a public health issue, a public policy issues, and the police are going to know that they cannot, this is not a crime that you should settle, this is not a crime that you should let the survivor return to that environment.
You do make a strong argument, and we hope that this platform, helps to enhance that argument and get it to boardrooms where it should be amplified, and perhaps you get that legislation. But more importantly, the behavioral change is needed at all levels, state institutions, and of course, in the society as well.
Yes.
Great work you're doing, and we must thank you very much. Olalade Ajayi is a founder, Doors Cares Foundation. Thank you for coming through on this one.
Thank you.
And that's how it's been on today's show. Thank you so much for being there. We'll be back again tomorrow for the midweek edition. Sunrise Daily is up next. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Ozama. Bye-bye.